Next up is Helen Shephard. She is a clinical sociologist, writer, public speaker. She is a social activist and believes the world would be a better place if people could open-heartedly accept pleasure and lose judgment about sex, themselves, and ultimately each other. I agree with that. Definitely. Please welcome back Helen Shephard.
Thanks. I am so happy to be back. I have to say, first of all, you mispronounced sexologist. A few years ago, I lost my job, and so like most people in that situation, I had lost a job I really loved. I was spending a lot of time masturbating. And I got to thinking, like, you know, they say that you should take what you love and turn pro. Is there a way that I can legitimize my days on end of masturbation and my huge interest in pornography? And so I went to graduate school, and long story short, I'm a doctor of human sexuality now. And I talked to you about that a lot last year, so I'm not gonna cover too much of the same stuff. I think you should check out the video. It was so well made, and I have a lot of fun stories about being a sexologist. But I was trying to come up with new material for tonight, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, "It's easy for you, Helen, just talk about some of these crazy sexcapades you've had." And I said, "You know, the thing is, you think that I do weird things in the bedroom, but I don't even do weird things. Like, I like to pee in somebody's mouth every now and again, but who doesn't enjoy a good mouth pee, right?" Right? I know, some of you look a little disgusted, but you have things confused because you're thinking about somebody else peeing in your mouth, and that's not what I'm into. I want to pee in somebody else's mouth. And I think that if you take the time to think about it and you consider like the relaxation that would have to be involved and the loving support from your partner and warm fluids, like you would understand that this is actually a totally normal desire. But it's possible that what I think is weird and what you think is weird are different, being that I am a sexuality professional. And as a sexuality professional, I feel a lot of pressure to be like the most sexually liberated person in the room, which is a ridiculous concept because it's always relative. But you know, it's also kind of a slippery slope. It starts out slowly. I bought my first vibrator when I was 14 years old from Spencer's Gifts, if you were familiar with the store. And it really wasn't anything exciting. It's just like a cylinder. I still have it. There's no texture. There's not like a lot of different speeds. But you know what? I was 14 years old. I brought it home. I named it David Duchovny, and it did the trick. It did the trick. But now, as a 30-year-old sexologist, I have to have like 5 vibrators and 3 different floggers, and you know, I never use them, but I like to like show off how kinky I am or whatever. Do you remember your first 3-way? So often, first 3-ways are a disappointment because people look forward to it for practically their whole life, and it takes so long to like, first you have to find a partner who's going to be supportive and find a third person, then you have to find the third person, and when it all happens, you think that the amount of pleasure that you experience is going to be equivalent to the amount of anticipation that you've had in the years of planning. But it doesn't turn out like that, because when 3-ways happen, it's like nobody came, right? Because it was so awkward. Do you remember your first 3-way? Because yeah, like nobody came, and if they did come, it's only because your girlfriend was having sex with another woman, and you were lying there pretending not to cry and like trying to masturbate. But it didn't matter because they weren't looking at you anyway. And the point is, 3-ways can be awkward not just because of jealousy, but just because of logistics. But you don't give up on the fantasy. You have one bad 3-way experience and you're like, I know, the solution is definitely to add more elements, not fewer elements. Maybe what I need is like one person goes down on me while another person is flogging me. So you spend weeks setting up a harness in your bedroom, only to have it all come crashing down because you failed to anticipate the weight of 2 people. But again, the solution is more, not less. So things just keep escalating in this fashion until one day you're fucking some dude in the ass with a strap on that you just met on OkCupid, and he's bent over the kitchen counter at his parents' house calling you by his sister's name. And then you're like, take a minute to reflect on this situation. Because here you are, there's like this totally kinky thing happening, it's somebody else's fetish, and you start to think like, I'm not even feeling anything right now. This isn't really pleasurable for me. What am I doing? I have to get a better strap on. You know? Something that gives me a little clitoral stimulation at least, because this is just not doing anything for me. One of the first times I realized for sure that I was kinky, which kinky is, like I said, a relative term, and you always kind of think that you're not really kinky, and other people are kinky, but you're not. Well, one time I was in the shower and I got a bloody nose. And my first thought was not like, oh no, what have I done to myself? Or oh no, like, how long is this going to keep bleeding? My first thought was like, I have to get a camera and take a picture of myself right now because somebody out there has a bloody nose fetish. And how often does like a kinky fat exhibitionist find herself with a bloody nose? I've got to take this opportunity and put this on the internet. Speaking of being a sexy fat chick, I am now performing burlesque at the gay bar in Eugene, and much thanks to the video that we recorded here that I submitted for my application. It is really wonderful. I love taking off my clothes in a room of strangers, and they love it. And I think that performing burlesque at my size is seen as really brave, like, that it almost doesn't matter that I mostly don't know what the fuck I'm doing because, well, you might see a fat performer and think that they have to be twice as sexy in order to get the same amount of respect as a burlesque performer. But I think that when I go on stage, people see in me their insecurities about their body. And what I'm doing by taking off my clothes is giving them permission to also find pleasure in their body. So they're just so surprised at my bravery, and they love it, and I don't even need to have to dance well. It's one of the weird advantages to being fat, I guess, because most of the time society hates fat people, and I have a lot of difficulty in our society that a lot of people don't have to deal with. But it's also kind of fun being fat because people expect me to have low self-esteem, but I don't. And thank you. See, people love it. I'm fat and I don't hate myself. But I was fat my entire life, so I got over it fairly quickly because as an adolescent, I was much more interested in having sex than I was in feeling bad about my body. So, yeah, so, you know, sexual desire, I guess, is a good way to get over body issues. Yeah, all right, somebody back there knows what I'm talking about. But there's sort of this phenomenon that happens with me, at least as a fat woman, where women come up to me, especially older women, and they tell me that I'm beautiful. Well, they used to tell me that before I started growing out my beard, and now I think they're just kind of afraid of me, like they don't know what to do with me. But they used to come up to me and they'd be like, you know what, you're really beautiful. And the thing is when I'm put in that situation, it would be like really dickish of me to say like, oh, I know. So I have to kind of, for their sake, feign humility and be like, oh, I know, thanks. And I kind of like, I look down or I kick a foot, and then they say, no, you are really beautiful. And then it's like an awkward situation because I've been trying to be polite, but out of like feigning humility, I'm actually soliciting more compliments. And so then I'm kind of like, I know. Oh, do you think so? Oh. I referred to this behavior as being a dick. Because I'm letting these women fawn over me, and now it's too late because I've kind of committed to the character. I hate the expression being a dick to mean being rude, because I don't like expressions that give negative connotations to people's genitals. But there's no better expression for being a dick. Like when you're being a dick, you know what I'm talking about. I say being a dick and you're like, yeah. And it's not the same as if I said, like, acting like a penis. You wouldn't understand. Like, that person was really acting like a penis. You'd be like, I don't get it. Like, they threw up in somebody else's mouth? Like most people who aren't bigots, I'm a feminist. So, thanks, yes, feminism, woo! So I know that female competition is bullshit, and I shouldn't feel threatened by other women. I don't want to like tear other women down. I want to lift us all up, right? As a common team, members, that like we can help elevate each other. And for the most part, I do that, and I'm like successful at feeling that like really honest feminism. But I do have like a thing that even though I know that it's bad feminism, I can't really help myself because my hackles go up around other fat women sometimes. Like, I think it's because movies always have like this one token fat friend. I sort of have this idea that there can only be one of us. So like, if I'm in a group of people and I'm like hanging out with my other thin friends and then like this other fat woman shows up and they're like, oh, this is our friend, Julie. I'm like, I don't think we have room for Julie at the table, which is horrible. And I'm working on that. But like, it's kind of like we're such a type sometimes that I really hate that. I get a lot of people telling me that I remind them of their friend. And I don't know, maybe that's normal, maybe everybody gets that, but it seems to me that it happens to me a lot. And so I've started saying in response to that, oh, you remind me of my friend. I've been like, oh, is she like a quirky fat girl too, with a personality as big as her size? And then people are always like, yes? And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's a thing. We're a type. But the truth is that, and I think this is getting better now, but it's kind of like there's only two places for fat women to shop. There's Lane Bryant, which is like business casual fat woman. And then there's Torrid, which is this like spunky, feisty fat woman who's alternative. So it's kind of like, yeah, no wonder you think I look like your friend. Like, we're all shopping at the same store. When I started dancing burlesque, my friend asked me, aren't you nervous? This was right before my first burlesque performance. Aren't you nervous? I'm like, yeah, thanks for saying that. But I was like, yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous I'm gonna trip and fall off the stage. I'm nervous I'm gonna forget my choreography. I'm nervous I won't be able to get my pants off fast enough. And she said, no, aren't you afraid of showing your body to so many people? There's gonna be a lot of people at the venue that you know in real life. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not nervous about showing my body to people. Like, honestly, there are so many naked pictures of me on the internet. It's just, I gave up caring about that so long ago. I've lost track. Like, I lost track of how many naked pictures there are of me in like 2001. I feel like some people I know are like, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend and he has 2 naked pictures of me. And I'm like, strangers have more naked pictures of me than that. So I referenced 2001, and back then the idea of webcam technology was so mind-blowing that I didn't even have to make up an excuse to my mom as to like why I wanted a webcam. She was just like, oh, webcam, that's amazing, you can chat with your friends. And I was like, yeah, you know, if by friends you mean like older men I just met on the internet, and chatting you mean masturbating, that's what I'm doing pretty much. But she never asked. Like, she just thought that technology was cool. And I was like, yeah, cool to show my boobs on. There was a point in time where I thought, I guess I'll never be able to run for office because all these naked pictures of me exist. But then I thought, no, you know what? If I run for office and the naked pictures get leaked, like, what do I care if people see them? I know I look fine. And if they want to look, let them look and let them enjoy my body. And that'll be like one of the platforms that I run on. Oh no, excuse me, I'll say, oh no, please don't look at those pictures. Gosh, I'd hate for anybody to see those. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.